Welcome back to another episode of the Salon Scale Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Dmitriy Smirnov, and my co-host.
Hey, I'm Jerome Rabin. Good morning, everybody.
All right. Well, today we're super excited to be joined by CJ Johnson, the founder of Eclectic Marketing. After leaving a career in the behavioral health space, CJ built a thriving agency helping small businesses grow through creative and personalized social media strategies. With a passion for empowering clients and a knack for making marketing approachable, CJ shares with us today how she's been helping brands achieve organic growth, taking them from 0 to 1,000 and beyond. So make sure you stay with us to listen and tune in for the insights, inspirational elements, and practical tips to boost your social media game. Well, first off, CJ, thank you for joining us. We're super excited to have you on.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us first your background and why you left,
Yeah, of course.
your previous behavioral health space and how you got into marketing, because it's kind of a
Big jump.
big switch. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be on the podcast with you guys and talking about marketing. Obviously, it's something I love. So to rewind, this actually started about 11 years ago. I had my first daughter, and then by the time she was 3, I had a second daughter that was a year old. So very close together, and they were both diagnosed with autism, speech delay, failure to thrive, all of the above. And it was a hard time for me. My husband at the time was always deployed.
Unknown caller.
Ignore that. Sorry about that. One moment. Sorry. All right. So they were both diagnosed with autism. That was a really hard thing to go through. So I was 5 days a week, 3 appointments a day, occupational health, ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, basically school for autism, speech therapy, you name it. And I was amazed at how quick my children went from not being able to talk, not having any social skills at all, to thriving and so smart, ahead of their class, and just doing so well. So I stayed at home with them for the first 7 years of their life. And then when it came time for me to choose a career, I was like, well, I really want to see what it's like from the other perspective of the therapist that gave those children therapy. So I became an RBT, a registered behavioral technician. And through those years, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it was also really hard. I got my butt kicked almost every single day. And it was a lot. From there, I stayed in the behavioral health world for about 3 years. And then I had a really big loss. I lost my father unexpectedly. And I needed to take a step back. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I really figured I need to reevaluate things. I need a place to be able to bring my creativity, to have, a big space to be able to be around my children a lot and to watch them grow up. And I did some research, came up with marketing, and actually just jumped right in.
Wow, that's it's quite some story here, and it's usually when trials come into our lives that kind of like shape where we go with our careers and everything else. So I'm glad that you got to really get that extra experience, understanding, especially working in the ABA space. So it helps you with your children as well. So that's phenomenal. Now, I'm sure there's things you learned there that maybe from a psychological standpoint apply to marketing too, if I'm not mistaken, right? So is there anything that kind of like transfers over and helps you with your new direction within the marketing space?
Well, for sure. So I was a behavioral therapist, so I dealt with the worst of the worst behaviors. So when I have clients that are kind of demanding, or they are like, I want my way now, I'm like, okay, well, hold on, let's think about this now. So what are the consequences of blah blah blah, and what do we think about if we, and I kind of just take, and I think that's why a lot of people like me, is because I'm really sweet and I bring a lot of compassion, but I'm also really realistic. I'm like, you're not going to go viral overnight, and we're not going to throw a hissy fit over that. I'm not going to promise that your sales are going to skyrocket overnight either. We're going to, build your engagement, build your brand, and really kind of showcase what you do best. But I also don't take a lot from people, because I'm like, we're not going to have those behaviors today. So definitely.
So do you also apply some of that knowledge in your work when you're researching and applying that towards the marketing for your clients? You're looking at the internet, you're looking at what people are doing, looking at the behaviors of their avatar, aka their shopper or best client. Do you utilize some of those trainings?
Yes, absolutely. Analytics are some of my favorite parts about what I do, and I can see who their audience is, where they are, what their age range are, what they're looking into, the trending things that they're into, and I can apply that. So it is kind of observing those same behaviors and applying it into a different space. So definitely.
Very nice. So, okay. So, all right. So this all stemmed because you wanted something that you could be doing from home with your kids around and you have flexibility, right? But like what specifically drove you to digital marketing and social media? Because I'm sure there's other pathways out there that kind of match that same need, right? The same needs to be able to stay home and everything. So what drove you to marketing?
Yeah, so with marketing, I'm a very creative person. I have a lot of hobbies and they're all creative. I love photography, and I have loved social media. I was that kid in, I think, middle school where I snuck over to my friend's house and made my first Facebook and did everything and designed it and had the songs. And we did like the coding. And I'm like, how did I even know how to do that back then? So fun.
MySpace. You're talking about MySpace.
MySpace. Yeah, did I say Facebook? See, look, it's so
Yeah.
old that I'm like literally, yeah. So MySpace, and I had all of that done, and it was so cool to me to be able to have an online persona. And so I really just kind of gathered everything, together. And something I also hate is monotony. I hate going to the same place every single day, working 8 hours and not changing my scenery. I'm ADHD. I'm all over the place. I need things to be different and a change of scenery. So I was like, well, if I'm out shooting content for all these different businesses, each client is a different case. Their content's going to be different, where they are is going to be different, and what we do is going to be different. Hence the name Eclectic Marketing, because it's an eclectic wide range of clients. And I do that for a reason. I don't just want to work with realtors and only, have content for them. I want to spread it out across the board and be like, well, how can I take a different look at this business or this business and kind of bring it in together and really be able to like thrive in my creativity and my evil madness just kind of be like, oh well, what different perspective can I take on this, what hasn't been done yet in this realm.
Nice. So what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far? Because I know you're about a year in, right, into your
Yeah, a
agency,
year in January. Yep.
but you're acting like you've been in business for 10 years, right? So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned, like going into like dealing with clients and working with small businesses and startups? Like, what do you have you seen as some of the trials or trivial elements and some challenges, and then what do you like best about?
Yeah, so to start with, really just kind of owning your confidence and just being confident in your abilities. At the beginning of the year, I was so nervous. I was like, I've never done this, though I have, a degree through UNLV. I was still very new to everything. I feel like they didn't prepare me super well for this industry. I kind of let a few clients walk all over me. They were really late with their payments. They kind of said, well, why would I hire you if I can go to UNLV and find a new grad? And I was like, well, you could totally do that. And it's just kind of having the confidence to say, yeah, if you want less, go find less, but I'm going to be more and I'm going to bring more to the table. So just really honing in on that confidence and knowing that, yeah, you can choose to go somewhere else. That's totally fine, but you're not going to get what I can bring to the table. And
Oh,
then,
that's super
go ahead, sorry.
important.
Yeah.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
And then my favorite part about it is building relationships with my clients. Most of my clients are my good friends now because when I go over there and I'm like, here, put this sheet over your head and we're going to do a ghost photo shoot and we're doing x-rays and chiropractic things in a ghost shoot. It's hard not to laugh. It's hard not to be like, what is my crazy marketer doing to me now? Why are we doing this? And then I'm like, go dance over there, like walk through the door and just dance. And they're like, okay. So I love being able to build those fun relationships and really kind of push people in their boundaries. They are so guarded and they don't want to show themselves on the camera. And I understand it's hard for me to even go on the camera and show my face. But at the end of the day, people want to see the face behind the brand. They want to know that there's a human that exists and it's not just AI responding to them, so that's huge. It's important.
Yeah, I would agree. And now that we're steering towards the marketing angle now, so bringing up AI and everything else, like, so what do you think is the most important part? And I think maybe that was the answer, like putting the personifying the business and the brand in a world of AI, right? There's so much noise now with AI. Everybody and their grandma can post on social media, million blogs, million, text posts, maybe some graphics through AI as well. But it still can never replace, I would say, that personable, real people approach to your company. So you mentioned a couple things there that you do. So you do actually include like video and photography work?
Yes, I do. So
in
not
your packages?
photography, but more content shooting.
Okay.
Usually with my clients, it kind of depends. I have a range. So everywhere from you do everything and you just tell me what to do to here's what I want to do and here's what I've laid out for us. So it kind of depends on which client we're talking about. But for the most part, I do bring an outline and I shoot for most of my clients every 5 weeks, and each shoot's about an hour to 2 hours, so nothing crazy. But I like to have like a three-pronged approach. So I like to do educational content. I like to do a good behind the scenes or getting to know the business. And then I like to do funny. I love hilarious, humor ridden things. So I like to try to find multiple trending topics and kind of bring them all in and hodgepodge them into meeting that niche.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, because right now the media piece is probably one of the most important elements in social media.
Mhm.
I think nowadays, basic text posts and maybe an static image posts are usually not cutting it as far as engagement. Maybe like an infographic occasionally, but even then, it's not.
It's only getting
It's
seen
really
by a percentage of your followers. We're not casting that
right.
out to the non-followers. Yes.
It's always
Correct.
it's always a video rules supreme today, and um, off offbeat topics that you wouldn't expect to have whatever the subject matter is in that kind of reverse role kind of play, because AI can't do that. You'd have to really know the subject matter and AI in order to do that. There are a few people who can do things like that, but it's very pricey, very high end, being able to do those kind of videos through AI. And so, and still, no one can beat, of course, as you say, your creativity, what's going on inside your head. AI can't do that.
Right. And even like what you were saying, like anti-hooks, like the reason I hate this business, and that's just in the, in the hook, like, and people are like, wait, why is she posting that or putting things that are kind of negative? Like my biggest regret. And then people are like, wait, what is that? And they're drawn to it. And even though it's kind of a negative thing, it's still drawing, the customer into
Yeah.
it. Ooh, what is that? Why do they hate this?
Yeah, and you can always spin it positive either way. It's just a hook. I mean, that's all it is.
Exactly.
So now let's say you've got a brand new client. Let's say a new business or a business that hasn't really invested into their social media in the past, and they're starting with a new account with zero followers. What would be your strategy to get them from zero to hero and like at least their first 1,000 followers? What is your approach?
Yeah, so the first thing I do is a big social media audit. So I'm looking for things like an optimized bio. Can I tell what they do in the first 10 seconds of looking at their biography? If not, I'm like, nope, on to the next. And so we're going to take a good look at that. I want some visual elements, some emojis. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's really going to kind of draw your eye to what they're showing. And then another thing I like to really hone in on is stories and those story albums, because the way I like to explain it is when you're posting day to day, you're posting your reels, your carousels, those are mainly meant for your non-followers. We're casting that wide net to kind of pull those non-followers in. But when you're posting to your stories, that's like your checkpoint. You're checking in with your followers on a daily basis. This is what I'm doing today. I'm drinking this coffee. I'm going to breakfast. I'm going to be on this podcast. Check out my daily life today. So if a business doesn't have that, why? Why not? Why aren't we seeing those daily check-ins? And then when you have those story albums, when I first click onto a business page, I'm clicking on the About Us in those stories. I'm clicking on the What have we done recently, our projects. I'm clicking through those to get to know that brand. I'm not necessarily going to jump right into your reels or your post. That's not super important to me. So I'm going to make sure that that's all optimized. And then we want to provide valuable content. I'm so sick of people just posting things that are just throwing it out there and seeing what sticks. We're going to do some research. We're going to really dive into what's trending, what, people are looking for, what people are laughing at. And then we're going to try to get it into your niche and try to adapt it into what you do, as well as just boosting engagement. If Instagram sees that you're getting on there and you're posting and then you're leaving, they're not going to push your content to other people. They're going to be like, oh, this is a business and they're not caring about their followers. So what I tell everybody is post whatever content it is, and then stay online, scroll, like people's things, comment, engage with them. And then the more you do that, the more the algorithm is going to push your content to other people, those people that you've engaged with. So engagement is really, really important.
Okay. And I'm assuming you include that engagement piece in all of your packages.
Oh yes. After I post for somebody, I'm going through, I'm liking, I'm commenting on stories and posts. Oh yes. Engagement's huge because like I said, if you're not engaging with other people, people aren't going to be engaging with you. It
That's
has to be
true.
a two-way.
So when you're taking on a new client, what would be your initial, should I say, approach them? What are some of the, maybe share with us some of your initial questions that you ask them in order to get to know them and understand more about them? What is your approach?
So I like to start off with kind of, do you mind being on film? Do you mind that your face is in these reels? I do have a newer client that's like, absolutely not. I don't want to be in any films. We could do like from behind or we could do the hands, but and that is a little bit challenging, not gonna lie, because I love to show people's faces. Lots of research out there that shows that if your face is in the video, you're going to have a lot more views than if it's not. But just kind of seeing what they're comfortable with, seeing what their kind of content they want to post, if they're comfortable posting that humor content, or if they just want educational and promotion. And then just going along and just seeing what they want. What are their goals? If somebody says, I want to go viral tomorrow, then there's going to have to be a conversation. Don't we all want to go viral? I would love to go viral, but that's just not reality. It's about consistency. And I've gotten, quite a few clients where I've, gotten in the sweet spot with the algorithm where every single post I do in the first day, there's, a couple thousand views. And when I first started with them, they were getting 30 views per post. So it is kind of training the algorithm and getting it into a really good sweet spot to where it wants to show your content because it knows it will perform.
Now, do you like to, you say you do a lot of the content for your clients. Are you also reaching out to and responding in the name of your client on social media, or engaging potential people that are engaging with your client stuff? What kind of relationship do you then create between yourself and your client? Are you like calling them up immediately and being like, hey, I got someone asking questions, or someone's looking for your service? Or is it more like, let me put you in touch with somebody at the company?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If it's a very generic question or oh my gosh, I love this post, I will comment as if I am them. Oh, thank you so much, you're amazing, that type of thing. But no, if they are interested in business services or they're really wanting to kind of talk to my client, that I will reach out usually via text or email. Hey, I don't know if you saw this, send a screenshot of whatever it is and say, hey, they want to talk to you. I don't want you to miss this message, because that's a huge one. I don't want them to miss any business. So that's a big part of what I do is saying, hey, don't miss out on this message. Look here.
Yeah, so that's extremely important. So for all the viewers who are out there, when you're talking to people about your social media management and your accounts, and you're looking to hire somebody or bring somebody on board them, people like CJ, you can see that they go that extra mile. They actually are managing your social media. They're not just posting. They're not just creating content and be like, here you go, let's put this up and see what reaction we're getting. They're actually managing and becoming the personification of you online.
That's a great way to put it. Because yes, and then whenever I'm doing a post, like I have one client who is a coach, a life coach, I think. Don't murder me for this one, Amber. She's a coach. She also wears a lot of other hats. She's an author and a lawyer. But whenever I go to do a post for her, I think, because I know her well on a personal level as well, and I've gone to her seminars, I think, would she say this? Is this something that she would say? And then she always says, you know me best. You say things better than I do sometimes, but I still get nervous. I'm like, I want it to sound like it's coming from her, something that she would say herself. So it is very important that, like you said, I get to know my client, get to know their ins and outs. And most clients do have like a no-no list, like do not say these words, do not include this, we're not going to promise this. And that is almost bigger to me than the go ahead and do this, because I'm like, I have to remember what it is. Even some things in the medical field, like I have a few doctors and I cannot say that this will cure, there's like a whole list of things that I cannot say. And that's really important to me. HIPAA violations, things like that. Like I'm very mindful of, especially from my years in the behavioral industry.
Yeah.
So tell us, you're using a lot of engagement. So you're actually engaging with other people while you're posting. So you're staying online, you're getting that kind of algorithm trained, saying that you're active, not just, publishing through a third party, scheduling tool. Right. And then other than that, do you also allocate a certain budget from a client towards boosting posts? Does that have any good effect for clients, or what is your opinion on boosting a post using obviously like an ad revenue or ad spend? That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love organic marketing. I'm all about organic. There's organic and there's paid marketing. people aren't aware. Organic marketing is just bootstrap. You just get in there and you post and you engage and you build that organically. Whereas paid is you just throw money and you're like, all right, let's just boost this post. I don't generally start off with any paid advertising. Even for a newer client, I like to get past that 3-month hump because, like I said, I'm training the algorithm. I'm not going to throw money and be like, here you go ahead and do it for me. I want to be the one to grow your Instagram or your Facebook or your TikTok. Like, I'm going to be the one putting in that hard work. So I really don't want to just throw money at a post that I don't know is going to perform well. And that is really my niche, is organic marketing. Like, I don't want you to pay me and then pay me another amount to throw towards marketing. Like, you are paying me to be your marketer. So I do thrive with the small business atmosphere as well as organic marketing. So that's what I do best.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so for the audience, just like CJ was mentioning, there's the paid side of advertising, or of Facebook, social media, Instagram. All of them have like a paid monetization version, right? Where you can just pay to be viewed now. And then the organic side is always the more challenging side, because anybody can pay, but not everybody knows how to actually get the algorithm trained, just like CJ's been talking about. Now, the paid version is the easy way out, so to say. Now, let's say if someone does opt to pay, though, is that going to negatively affect their ability on the organic side?
I think so. I think it's more neutral, but just because it is shown to thousands of people doesn't mean that that's your ideal client. Yes, you can adjust your audience, your location, things like that, but it's not going to target your ideal audience every time. The same way an organic post is, where I'm using all those SEO words, I'm, using the relevant hashtags, and I'm drawing in those hooks and those videos that are specifically for your audience. I don't think it's the same, but I don't think it's going to negatively impact anything. I think it'll just be pretty neutral. Because, like I said, you can get the views and you're guaranteed to get the views with paid marketing, but it's not always optimized. It's always going to benefit you in a positive way. That's why I like to build the brand up first before I even consider paid marketing.
Got it.
So on that note, then, what would you say? Okay, back to the analytics side of it. Then, when you're speaking with your client, what does a reporting session consist of when you're speaking to them? How do you engage with them? What do you? I'm sure we can all say we all like looking at graphs, and we all want to see the graph go up. But what kind of so that we all speak to our clients. We all we all have meetings with them, and the first thing is the question is, how did my social media do? How many viewers do I have? And that's not always the answer. Like, it's, yes, you want to gain followers, but it's like, look what we did with the engagement. This is the better metric because we're engaging more. And those kind of reports and getting them to understand those kind of relationships that they're building the brand. The engagement is building the brand. The follower is because they liked what they saw and you engaged them. They clicked I like or I follow. So what do you strive to, shall we say, engage when you're speaking to your clients on the reporting side?
Yeah, so obviously I dive right into my favorite metrics are in Instagram. I love seeing that because it's laid out there so beautifully. So I love to show the achievements. That's just you made this many posts, you had this many views, and it's like a little badge, which I think is really cute. But also showing, like you said, the engagement. How much has the engagement gone up? The followers gone up? How are your views doing? What time are people viewing those things? Because that's really important too. If you're posting at 6 a.m. and most of your viewers are on at 2, that's a huge portion. We need to look at that. So definitely honing in on how everything's going. What is your biggest post is another one, because a lot of times one big post is, you can reuse that and recycle that in a few different ways. So if you post it 1 month and it does really, really well, the next month you can repost it with a different hook and kind of remix it and still get great views. And then we know that's the type of content we need to take next time. So I really just dive deep into the analytics on Instagram and really just kind of hone in. And I also like to show them trending things in their niche, because that's also in that little section, is trending things in that audience. So seeing what among your followers they're looking at and then trying to recreate those is really powerful.
Whoa, awesome! I mean, you're diving. You're doing some really deep dive for your clients, and you can see that. I can see that. What you're sharing with us. It's not your, shall we say, the run of the mill. And I hate to use that word but in our business, we see a lot of people just get into the business of, I want to get into social media because I can sit at home and I can do this all day, versus There are people who are really driven by it, are engaging by it. They really want to help their clients, and they really want to drive that needle. And and the more the more we speak with you, and we've spoken to you off air, in length, and your, should we say, your positive attitude and desire, is your underlining, I'd say, like driving force to help people. I mean, even from your previous career, just it always shows through in what you're trying to do.
And that's a huge portion of it that I forgot to mention too, is one of my kind of guidelines for a good career choice for me is the ability to feel like I'm doing something. I can't just go to a coffee shop, and nothing against baristas. I love baristas. Baristas are my best friend. When it comes to me, for my career choice, I have to do something that is impactful and meaningful, and like I feel like I'm making a difference. And my job is one of the funnest jobs I could ever imagine. Like I posted something recently where I was in one of the bars that I manage their socials. I was having a beer and I was in a cow onesie because it was Halloween and we were having a Halloween party there. And I'm like, I literally, in the caption, I think I posted, wondering how I got here in a cow onesie drinking a beer wasn't working because I just got done shooting content. And I'm like, how is this? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy town. But this is my job. Like, this is something that A, brings meaning to my life. B, I get to just input all of my creativity and whatever it is that I run with it. And I've never had a job that I'm able to do that to this extent. And then just having, like you said, the flexibility to be able to work from wherever I need to. My husband's a pilot. I know that once he gets into the airline industry, he's going to be traveling a lot of the time. And this is going to free up time to be able to travel with him while still taking content and doing things along the way. So it's a very inclusive atmosphere.
Now I'm going to get into a part here. How do you come up with your ideas for content? Because, okay, let's be honest. Thinking of like HVAC, plumbing, there's a lot of industries that you don't think about being like a highly creative area to, get the juices going for new ideas for content, right? How do you handle content creation for these little bit more difficult clients that maybe you didn't know much about the industry or you didn't understand it well enough? But like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the hardest one that I've had so far was an accountant. That was a little tricky. Try to make accounting seem super like woo. So the first thing I start with when I'm like, I know nothing about this industry, obviously I do my brand research, but I ask the client, what makes you different? What sets you apart? So if I were to go and hire an HVAC company anywhere here, I live in Las Vegas, what sets you apart from anybody else? And I sit there and I listen. And then I ask different parts about their business. Well, what kind of promotions do you have? What do you guys offer? And then just really kind of going through. And then I try to think about it from a promotion side of view of if, they're offering a winter HVAC, like clean out your systems and your air ducts. Well, that's going to be an entire, Christmas/winter campaign. And we're really going to hone in on, hey, beat the rush before everybody else gets in here. We need to get your systems clean, why we're not busy and why, it's a little bit cheaper. And then I know this is kind of a funny answer, but by copying other people, social media is about seeing other things that are performing really well, taking aspects from that, and then utilizing
Making
them.
your own. Mm-hmm.
Making your own. Yeah. So if I see a post and it's somebody, like I did one recently where it's like going into work and they're all excited. And then at the end of the day, they're like, oh, and that's something that I can use for any client anywhere. Everybody can relate to that. Going into work and you're like, yeah, let's seize the day. And by the end of the day, you're like, this is the worst. I'm so tired. So it's just really taking things that can be used across the board and just adapting it to that specific business.
Staying on that same vein of being creative and trying to meet each client on something unique, and you actually go out in the field and you meet your clients and you videotape, you record them, and you take still photography. How do again it's getting the client involved. They do their job every day. For them, it is a little bit mundane, bookkeeping or brain surgery. It doesn't matter. They got a checklist they're going through every day doing their thing. So what are some of the things that you bring with you and kind of get them to kind of break out of that, run of the mill and be a little bit unique?
Yeah. So obviously I bring my tripod everywhere. And then I have like my little cute mics that you just strap to your shirt so that you're not like holding something. And then I bring examples of content that I want to film that's similar. to what I want to shoot. So kind of showing them the energy I want them to bring and the humor and sometimes the dancing and saying, look, this is what we're shooting for. I want you to adapt it in this way to where we can make it slightly different. But just kind of showing them the energy. Look, this is what we want. And sometimes I have to be in there giving the example. Like, all right, so you're going to walk through this store, you're going to do this, and you're going to, and then I bring props. Props are another huge portion of it. Like I said, I've done ghost photo shoots. I've done beer photo shoots where we're literally pouring it into a bowl and being like, oh, I'm so glad it's soup season. Just really kind of staying open and creative and funny. And if they have an idea, then I love when my clients bring ideas. A lot of the time they're like, you got it, you can do it. But when they bring their own ideas, I love to put a spin on their ideas and kind of let their brand voice speak through. Because I don't want to muffle their voice by my ideas. I want their ideas to come through because it's their business. It's important for, them to shine through as well.
Now, I'm gonna bring up the dreaded question in social media all the time. How do you show ROI on my investment into social media? Now, I know there's a little bit of a trick question, right? So I'll let you tackle it with how you would normally tackle that question.
So it is a hard one. I like to say right off the bat, if they're like, I want to get rich off of this and I want to make all the sales in the world, I'm like, I get that and I understand that. But social media it's not always about your return. A lot of it is building your brand identity, building that relationship with your clients to where I think I don't want to quote a percentage, but I'm going to, and it might not be completely accurate. I think it's 80% of clients go on social media when they're interested in a brand before even going to their store or in their online shop. They want to see what that brand looks like and what they stand for. And if you have no brand presence online, they might just skip to the next person. So it's kind of along the lines like if I was getting with a new customer and they said, I don't have a website, I'd be like, that's a problem. We need to get you a website. Because if I'm Googling a business and they're not popping up on Google, it's a little, scary. Imagine if you were trying to hire a lawyer and you couldn't Google them. You'd be like, oh, red flag, red flag. So it's really just about being able to find them online, being able to see their presence and being able to see when you click on their Instagram, they have their website, they have their Facebook, they have their TikTok. They're an established business. And I think that's more along the lines of what I'm doing is creating that not appearance, because it is creating your brand identity. It's creating this really clear view of what you stand for, where you're at, and just kind of posting across all things to say like, no, I'm real business. I'm here. We're chugging along. Here's my clients. Here's, the behind the scenes work. So it's not always going to be about the money. And that's I have to have a talk often with my clients as I'm not going to guarantee any kind of financial furtherment from working with me, but I can guarantee that your numbers are going to grow, your analytics are going to get better, and you're going to have a lot more of an optimized profile when we're finished here.
Yeah, and it's key to understand there's a big difference between organic social media and back to that concept of advertising. Advertising is typically synonymous with that lead generation portion of things. Then you've got things like PR, social media. There's a lot of other things out there that's more about brand recognition, building your brand and showing your presence, showing that you're real, right? Giving that authenticity to your brand and letting people see what you're about, right? There's a time and a place for everything. And in marketing, as all things should be, there is a balance. So, you don't put all your eggs in one basket either way. You need to have a little bit of everything. That's why in marketing, we call it a marketing mix, because it's a mix of things. So social media, organic social media has its place. Lead generation has its place. Advertising, everything falls in place in different places, right? So, it's key to remember that. So for anybody who thinks that social media is going to make you rich, or if it's going to turn your business around and drive leads to your business every day, that is not how social media works.
And it's not going to be the end all be all for, I'm going to get rich off of this. It's just not going to happen like that. If somebody is more interested in, I want to push this promotion and this promotion and this promotion, that might not be the right client for me. Mm-hmm. That might be, hey, you might want to talk to somebody about Google ads or Instagram or Facebook ads. Because I have decided I am not doing any more ads. I have stepped away from that. I did offer it and it's not my forte. It's just not what I like to do. Because even if you do have, like I said, thousands upon thousands of views, those don't always translate to sales. And that's not where I want to be. Is why, well, we had this many clicks. Why didn't I have this many, referrals, or why didn't I get this much business? I don't know. I don't know. And that's not something that I want to guarantee or say I could do a good job with, because it's iffy. And maybe it's just because I'm not the best that I can be in the ads area, the ads realm. But I do know my strong suit, and that is social media. So that's what I go in with. I'm confident in doing your socials and getting them optimized, and we can get you to a good place.
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is this way. The paid side of social or any ads, it's like the equivalent of fishing. You got to find the right pond at the right time, with the right bait, with the right rod, like
Right.
at with the right weather, time of day, everything. And it's like the stars have to align, and you have to be very meticulous about testing and trial. And believe me when I tell you, there's a lot of wastage on bad spend, right? So it's not for the faint of heart, to be honest with you. Advertising is not for every small business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to keep in mind. And here's the thing that I would definitely commend CJ for. She stays in her lane of what she knows really well, and she doubles down on her knowledge and her ability to really perform what she does well. So, it's important to have someone like CJ that's going to handle that organic side of things, because at the end of the day, what CJ does is what takes people from being like a one-time customer and instead builds a lifetime customer, somebody that's actually going to be well engaged with you, remembers you, comes back to you. That's the value on the organic side. Same thing with like PR and all these other ones. It's not there for an immediate ROI. And don't forget, the things that CJ does also translate into many other pieces of your marketing. For example, that same content that she's formulating can easily go into an email newsletter, or if anything that she's doing, like could be like a newsletter, drip campaigns, all kinds of different little things, intros to your, email marketing, whatever. Let's say you have a fun video that you did for social that introduces a service or introduces the process. Boom. Now you've got that nice piece of content that can go out and repurpose it for many, many other things.
Yes, exactly. I make a Google folder for every single client, and I tell them that is your client, or that is your content. Every single thing in this folder is yours. I'm never going to, work with a client for the first 3 months and then they leave, which I've never had a client leave after the first 3 months. They've always, can I put you on auto pay here? Take my money. I'm like, okay, hold down, slow down. But I'm never going to take your content with me and be like, no, you can't have this. I've heard of other marketers doing that, and that's absolutely crazy to me. I'm like, it's your face. I went to your business and shot videos of you. Why would I take that with me? So that's something that I'm doing on a regular, is I have an album in my phone for each client. And then I also have a Google folder where I'm uploading that stuff for them to use and repurpose in any way that they feel works.
Exactly. I want to just add, and I'm going to add one more element to that, is when you're advertising, you got to find that specific fish that is hungry at that exact moment to bite your bait, chew on that bait. So there is place for online marketing, advertising, but it's a one-time, shall I say, it's a finite thing. It's a one-time. Somebody sees it, they're either going to take action or they're not going to take action. What CJ is doing is she's building that narrative, that long range, and then you can get multiple, as we're saying, multiple iterations out of the same content. And by the way, yes, it also can be used for your marketing, advertising if you wanted to. It can be converted into that. So the content marketing runs a much bigger range than just advertising. Advertising is one narrow beam.
Well, you got to remember, from typically social media is part of the outbound, outbound content strategy. Right. So you're going out and you're trying to attract people into your funnel typically, right? And you have to remember, in your funnel approach, you've got top of funnel, you've got mid funnel, and then you got bottom of the funnel, right? When you're advertising, you're praying for that bottom funnel to be what's baited and clicking and jumping on that hook so you can convert. People always forget, though, the mid and top funnel. Top funnel, they're now aware of your brand. Mid is they're researching and they're trying to make a decision, but they're not quite ready to pull the trigger. And then the bottom funnel is the maybe 5 to 10% that's actually ready to transact. Now, what you do once you bring in this nice, well-oiled, organic social piece is you're able to now take more of that funnel, that 100% slice, right? And normally people ignore the top and middle of the funnel. Right. So that's literally 90% of your potential clients are in that part of the funnel. And when you add something like organic social media that's done well, it does well to now to re-engage that part of the funnel and be present for when they are ready to get further into that final bottom 10. That little bit of social media or that video or that offer or whatever you posted at that time could be exactly what they needed to make the decision to pull the trigger at that point. So, again, that's why it's like organic social media is really hard to do a proper ROI analysis on it. I mean, there's ways of doing some of it, but at the end of the day, like you can't ignore it. You need to be doing it. You have to go through the motions, and you have to understand that it's a piece of a bigger pie, right?
So I'm going to jump in. I'm going to say, since we are talking about marketing and you are in that marketing vein, what do you do for yourself? All those that are out there want to get into this business. What do you do for yourself that also also helps you separate yourself? Some of the things that you say, we all said the saying, the cobbler always walks around with no shoes, but or the cobbler's kids walk around with no shoes, or the saying. But what do you do on your marketing to attract your audience? And that would be advice. Maybe you would say, hey, to somebody who wants to get into this business, these are the things that worked for me. Not necessarily going to work for you, but this was what I found works for me.
Right. So in terms of social media for myself, that was one of the biggest things that I was a little bit hesitant to go on the podcast for. I always say, look at my client socials, don't look at mine. Tried to be better about it, but after a good 6-8 hour stretch of doing content and posting for other people, the last thing I want to do is get all dolled up and then make my own content. I'm really terrible at it, and honestly, like, it is on my New Year's resolutions this year to be a lot better about it. I honestly, upcoming the new year, I want to start a podcast myself, so that's really exciting, and I think that that's going to help generate a lot for myself, because I don't take a lot of time to put aside content. But I don't do any marketing for myself. I do zero marketing for myself. I get all of my clients, most of my clients, by word of mouth or BNI. So I've not had to market, and I've been so blessed with that because I don't take the time to do it. And honestly, the new year is going to start a new business model for myself, the way that I do advertise myself. I'm not going to go paid. I'm just going to stay to organic and word of mouth. But yeah, just kind of widening my horizons with content for myself, being more mindful about what I post and when I post on a schedule. I'm going to start getting into that more, and really just growing my own following, because honestly, a lot of times I get so wrapped up and busy in my clients that I kind of neglect my own business. And I know that's not a good, reason. You should lead by example. But as my father,
we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, my dad used to say, do as I say, not as I do. And I tell all of my clients that. Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, just really kind of being more mindful about myself. But hey, if I'm having the leads come in and I'm having the business, then I'm not going to poo-poo on myself too much, because I'm making it work. I've got the clients.
No,
and I'm just going to jump in there. I'm just going to say, for all those new listeners who don't know, BNI is Business Networking International. We're all members in different chapters across the country. So, if you're not a member of BNI and you'd like working with referral business, don't walk, as they say, run to your nearest chapter and go visit your nearest chapter and get into BNI. Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to throw that out there.
No,
not a paid engagement. This is not a paid.
Not anything, right. Yeah, you're not getting.
I literally had no idea what BNI was at all. And I have a really good friend, Ashley. She's a lawyer friend, and she knew that I just started up my business. The first BNI meeting I went to was actually Valentine's Day of last year. And I was so nervous. I'm super introverted. I'm not super outgoing and social as I might appear to be. So I remember I walked in and I saw a group of people, and I walked right out and went to the bathroom and sat in there for the next 5 minutes until it actually started, so that I didn't have to talk to anybody. And then everybody was so nice. They were so outgoing and bubbly and wanted to know about my business and wanted my business cards. And I started the next month in March. And honestly, it's just it just revved everything up so fast. And I had referral after referral after referral after referral, to the point where I felt bad, because I'm not in an entrepreneurial space. I don't know a lot of other entrepreneurs outside of BNI. So it is hard for me to kind of bring outside referrals into BNI, because I'm I don't know business people. I don't know people that own their, I'm the only one that knows, but now it's just, I've ingrained myself in BNI. I'm now an education coordinator for BNI. So I hold a leadership position, and it's one of my favorite things I do every week. I feel like it just brings a new energy to the business. It gives you the space to talk about your business with other like-minded people. And, sometimes when you tell your friends or family, like, I'm going to start a business. They're like, don't do that. It's a terrible idea. But you go into BNI and you're like, I want to start a second business. They're like, okay, we'll talk to so-and-so for this, talk to them for that, and we'll get you a DBA, and we got you going. And it's just such an uplifting, positive atmosphere. And you really get the support you need to follow your dreams. And I'll never not be a part of BNI because it's been so amazing.
Well, I think the beauty of something like a BNI is the fact that you want to be surrounding yourself with people that you want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if all you do is go and talk about your business ideas with your buddies that you meet at the bar every week, it's not the same.
Yeah. They're going to run your parade. They're going to tell you it's not going to work, and why don't you just go work down the street at that store or something?
Yeah, it's not the same, and honestly, it is just about engaging with more people that you want to be like, and then that just honestly it just opens doors. Because the best thing to do, and this is coming from like I'm a marketing consultant. That's all I do is like I just do marketing consulting. Everybody thinks, oh, I have to advertise. Oh, I have to do this. I have to do this and this and this to make my business big. But the first place everybody should be looking at as a startup is building a network. It's in going to something like a BNI, getting people that can refer you business, people that you can trust and form relationships with. It's not about advertising, or I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade here, CJ. It's not like usually social media is not the first thing that they do either. It's about getting yourself ingrained in your local network first.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to pay for social media or this or that consistently, right? If you don't have business coming in and it's not, good business that you're not, spending a lot of money on. So it's usually the starting point. And then from there, that's when you have the ability to start rounding out your marketing mix, start adding your social media into the fold. You start doing a little bit of lead generation and cold outbound, right? So it's definitely fun getting into owning your own business and growing it, but
And there's a huge
surround yourself.
BNI, a huge thing that I love is just learning. Of course, one of the standards are lifetime of learning. And for me, when I joined this, I didn't know how to run a company. I didn't know how to do my taxes. I had no idea how to do a website, I didn't know how to do anything. I was so new to this. And I just found a wealth of knowledge through everybody in the chapter because, as you guys know, there's one of every type of career, I guess you could say, in the chapter. There's a financial advisor, there's lawyers, there's doctors, but there's not more than one of each type of person in that group. And I just hopscotch one person to the next to the next. What could you kind of help me with? What advice do you have? And oh my gosh, like I've learned years and years and years, people that have been in my chapter for so long, more than I've been alive. And it's like, I just am so thankful for everything that I've learned because it has catapulted me into a way more successful space. If I wouldn't have had BNI in the first year of business, I might have gone under. Not even gonna lie, because that's where all my referrals came from. That's where I learned how to run a company. It's where I learned how to do my financials, my taxes, how to file a DBA. Everything I've learned through BNI, and it's only through the support and of my friends and fellow networkers. So hugely successful. If you're brand new, and I tell all my friends now that have just started their business, I'm like, join a BNI chapter. I will go on a tour with you. Like, please just do this for yourself. I know it's intimidating to get in front of people and to speak and to promote yourself, but at the end of the day, you're working on all those skills: public speaking, promoting yourself, talking about your business. These are all skills that are so important in the entrepreneurial setting. Like, you need to learn how to do these, and BNI is such a supportive environment to kind of dip your toes in the water. Nobody's going to judge you if you do a bad presentation. Nobody's going to judge you if you forget what you're saying. They're going to support you, and they're going to give you a pat on the back and say they're proud of you. So love my BNI people.
Yeah. I mean,
oh, for sure.
Yeah. I would say, that's one of the things I would say to anybody who's starting a new business. Definitely think about your immediate network and how to get referrals. Referral marketing, it's a warmer engagement than a cold call. Cold call, nobody knows who you are. Referral marketing, it's somebody is referring you. That's somebody who knows you, appreciates your work, or it just opens a lot more doors.
Mm-hmm.
Or shall I say, it's got a higher rate of conversion. When I said opens more doors, I mean, it's got a higher rate of conversion, warm marketing versus cold calling, of course, versus direct engagement, So get out there and get involved. I also took Dmitriy's advice, and I joined BNI. And when we started our engagement and we started doing business together, I've always been in production. Suddenly, like, you got to become center of mind and start looking at the clients and talking to customers. And I still remember my first presentation, not my first 60 seconds. And then now you look back and you're like, My God, that was pathetic.
Wait. It's like, how hard is it to talk about yourself and what you do for a living? Like, it could be really hard and nerve-wracking at first when you haven't practiced it.
Well, I think what I love about it though is it gives you a safe space to work on that brand message, to work on how you would present yourself to clients as well, because you do that 60-second commercial every week, or 15-second, 30-second, right? And it does get you thinking on how to be concise, condensed. What I like to always say, with your words. And that's, as a marketer, that's super important for yourself or anybody that's running a business. You got to be intentional with your words. You got finite amount of time to capture someone's attention, and it's a good training exercise on a weekly basis. So it's repetition every single time. The more you do something, the better you get, right? Same thing, public speaking, you get that benefit from doing that. But anyways, before we keep honking BNI's horn, okay, and tooting their horn and all that jazz, I want to drive back in because it's so easy to keep going down that rabbit hole. Now, all right, so we've been talking about what you do. Now, let's give the listener something practical for themselves. So let's say they maybe don't have the budget quite yet to hire someone like you, right? What advice or tips would you give them on how to try to start setting up their profiles and then planning out their content, and kind of like what tips would you give? Like, let's say 3 good tips on how to actually get started in social media on a budget.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I'm going to look at is your profile picture. That's huge. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a profile picture. No, it's a big one, because people are going to say either this is a person or a business, or this is like a bot. Like, I don't want to be interested in this. So if you are a business, I would suggest the first thing, having your picture as your profile picture is a huge one. If you're not comfortable with that, or you want it to be more brand heavy, do a nice logo, redo your logo, make sure it's concise and not too cluttered. And make that just really nice looking. Kind of have the colors of your profile picture tie into the rest of your profile. The second thing I would do is optimize your bio. That's a huge one. When I'm looking at somebody's profile, I want to be able to tell in the first 10 seconds what they do. I want to be like, okay, this is a so-and-so shop. This is a marketing company. This is a dentist office. I want to be able to see visual interest. And that's, I know it sounds cheesy, but add those emojis, have that visual interest in there, have a place for me to call, or a website to look up right there. So if I'm like, oh, shoot, I really wanted this company, let me get to know them or call them or see what they're all about. And then the third thing I would say is, don't just throw up content. Don't just, whatever you can find on Canva and download in 2 seconds and throw it up there. Don't do that. Really think about the kind of content that makes you stop that scroll. Like, ooh, what are they doing? What is that? I want to see more. Whenever I see content like that as a marketer and I stop, I'm like, ooh, what's that? I automatically stop from that stop. And I said, what made me stop that scroll? What is it that drew me in? And I try to recreate that. So really bringing valuable content is going to be the biggest part of that puzzle for really drawing in the crowd and casting that net to your non-followers. Because if you're not having engaging content that's, valuable in the learning capacity, or even just humorous content, what are you doing? Why are we even doing this? I'd rather you not post than post something, silly that's not going to captivate me. So really having that valuable content is another huge part of the picture. And if you don't know where to find valuable content, type in whatever, area you're in. If you do HVAC, if you are a lawyer, search it, and then just keep scrolling until you find something that you're like, okay, that's cool. It's got a lot of views, a lot of likes, and I can recreate that easily. Then do it, recreate it. Because social media so many times is about recreating what somebody's done well. And it's not copying, it's not doing it identically, but it's doing it to where you're finessing it to be into your image, but still utilizing the creatives that somebody else has brought forth.
And I have one more question, I guess, back to the engagement side. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend? Because saying engagement is kind of very generic. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways to engage on social media. How do you recommend a brand or a business engages on social media, right? Because just going on someone's post and trying to, advertise yourself is probably not going to do it, right? So, how do you normally approach that engagement component?
Yeah, so it's really just about being authentic. I don't want you going on every single post and be like, "Awesome post, you're the best. Awesome post, you're the best. Great post, you're the best." Don't do that. We're not trying to do that, but you see other entrepreneurs that are in the same space as you. Wow, I really liked the way that you did this. This reel. That's so smart. Just having comments that come from the heart, liking post, resharing things to your story. If you see something that's really cool, and even if it's not in your niche, just reposting that and being like, I really love the way you did blah blah blah. Just being authentic about what you say and how you say it is really important. And I always say, it doesn't cost anything to support a small business. It's a simple like, a reshare, a comment, and that means the world to a small business owner. So you can support other people just by reposting their things, sharing that. Even just like saving their comment or saving their post helps drive their algorithm to show it to more people. So you can help boost other people and kind of boost your engagement by doing any of those things, sharing it, liking it, commenting. All of those really help to drive that engagement up.
Now, okay, but now I'm going to add one more touch to this. So, how do you find who you should be engaging with? Is it going to be typically just people in your own industry that might be competitors, or is it like just like random clients and other businesses at random? Or how do you normally approach that? Because like perfect example, a marketing agency, they're more opt, let's say, to engage with marketing related content,
Mhm.
but that person that they engage with is not necessarily a client for them, right?
Right.
It's maybe a competitor, but somebody that they get ideas from, whatever else. What is the balance between that, like when it comes to engagement? Because I know the more you engage with somebody in a specific area, the more they're going to see you and you're going to see them. But how is that sometimes valuable to you if it's only in your own industry?
Right. So whenever I do jump into a new client's case and I'm managing their social media, I'm going to think about strategic power partners. So, for instance, I just started with a window and glass company, and I'm thinking, well, who would need window and glass work? Well, realtors and home builders and even auto shops, because you always go and they have all the glass right there. So I go through and I add those strategic people, and it doesn't always mean that they're going to translate into a referral, but it does mean that they're going to see your post. And I'm like, ooh, they do really good glass work. I got to keep them in mind. And the more that you build that brand identity, the more they're going to see your post over and over and over again. So, really, just kind of when I tackle a new case, I'm really going to think, what are those strategic power partners and how can I get seen by people that are actually going to want this product? So,
I like that a lot. And what you brought up a really good point. It's not only about sometimes targeting that B2C direct. Oftentimes, there's people ignore the fact that there's opportunity to reach out to potential referral partners or to make relationships with other companies that would be a natural referral to you as well. So even I would say in social media, it's the same thing. I like that you actually think about those power referral partners, the strategic partnerships that might be there. So you can still engage with content, still engage with somebody that might be relevant and not necessarily only do it, in your own industry. So that's phenomenal. That's a great tip.
yeah. And really just scrolling, you don't have to go out and seek people, but whoever's in your feed, just go through, and you don't need to spend more than 10 or 15 minutes after you post something to engage and comment and like and share those things. But like I explained to you earlier, when you're engaging with somebody else and you're, liking, commenting, sharing, it's also going to push your content to those people, those exact people who you commented and liked and shared. Instagram, Facebook, all of those are going to share their stuff with you, and you're going to share your stuff with them. So it's a two-way street there. You can't just hop in, post, and jump off because nobody's going to see your stuff. It's not going to push it to that wider audience that you're rooting for.
And I really think people forget that the whole point of social media is to be social,
Yes.
not just to put hit and run your publishing and your posting, which I think that's where a lot of almost everybody goes wrong because they look at social media as a chore, not as like something where you're going to go in there and actually engage and enjoy. But in the time of instant gratification and limited timing, like it makes sense why people are like that. But you're 100% right. It shouldn't be like that. You gotta engage. Okay.
The
Well,
algorithm's going to punish you if you do not. The algorithm is not going to want to push your content
now
if you're not engaging.
with that in mind, okay, so let's say you've got somebody that had an established page. So one thing is when you create new good habits and build the algorithm and train it for a new account. Now, I've heard that the algorithm is a lot more forgiving if it's a new account, and they'll give you the opportunity. But what about an existing page that went through years of torment and bad habits? How do you fix that? Like, do you think it's better sometimes just to start a new account for them? Or do you think it still is viable to try to retrain the algorithm on an existing platform?
Yeah, it does take a little bit more time. Typically, if it's like, they're getting 2, 3 views per post and like no likes or engagement at all, it's going to take a bit more. I like to say it takes about a solid month and a half to fully train their algorithm. And that's consistency. That's posting, on a schedule. I don't like to be too picky about the times when I'm first starting out, because then Instagram will tell me, well, their most, your users' most active times on social media are at this time and this time. So that kind of helps once we're in the swing of things. But really just keeping consistent posting schedules. And, on Monday, if I'm going to post something motivational, I'm going to try to keep that recurring theme so the clients know, or the audience knows, well, usually on Monday they post a motivational, post. I'm going to keep an eye out for that. And maybe Wednesday is going to be a behind the scenes, and Friday is going to be humorous. It's going to be a funny, tidbit. So kind of keeping that consistency, and then looking at the data. Are people liking these types of posts? If they're not, and they're not getting good views, well, let's try to pivot a little bit. Let's try to change what we're actually posting and make it favorable to your audience. But no, I don't think it's ever too far gone, as you said, or, it's not going to be a thing where like you should just throw the whole page away and start over from scratch. Most pages I can salvage, and I do like to keep their page, especially if it, ties into their business name and it's all like tied to their Facebook and their, all their other websites. I don't like to start over from scratch, but I can. Or even I've worked with people that have multiple Instagrams and I have to condense them into one. And usually I just pick the one with the highest amount of followers, because I'm going to like do an overhaul anyways. So it doesn't really matter. Change all the things, and not all the things, but a lot of the things, and optimize them. So yeah.
That's fair. All right. Well, CJ, we've hit actually the hour mark, so we got to wrap up, unfortunately. But I want to give every guest a opportunity to do what we call the shameless plug. Okay. So this is your opportunity, BNI style, to number one, say who your target audience is, like who you would like to work with, what you would be able to offer them, and how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, sure. So any small business that is interested in organic marketing, which again, that is, you're not going to pay a fee to me and then pay another big fee to have me push those posts for you paid. It's just going to be time for me to look at your profile, optimize everything, get everything channeled in with SEO, and take over that content for you. I know a lot of business owners are like, oh my gosh, this is so cumbersome. Well, I want you to focus on your business so I can focus on the socials and the content portion of it. And then let me look at the analytics. Let me take a deep dive. Let me train the algorithm for you. And I always tell my clients, my goal is not to stay with you forever and kind of babysit you and post for you. My goal is to teach you how to do this yourself, because I can't run every social media in the world. I just can't. So I want to be able to teach you how to do it yourself and show you what I do. And then that way you can kind of take over when the time is right for you and take off. If they don't want that, which some people don't, I'll manage it for as long as you want me to. But it does help to kind of have that person there in your corner that knows what they're doing. And then, I'm sorry, what were your other questions?
No, how can they get in touch with you? And
yeah, so eclecticmarketingco.com is my website, or you can reach via email, eclecticmarketingco@gmail.com, as well as following us on socials. I think that's eclecticmarketingco.com, Eclectic Marketing Co. I don't know, something like that. But don't look at my socials. Once again, my socials are not the best example. Do as I say, not as I do. I will optimize my own profile and get it going for the new year, I promise.
Fair enough. All right, CJ. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wealth of knowledge on social media, especially the organic side is one of those things where it's like not everybody knows how to actually do proper organic social media, and that's why everybody always like social media doesn't work. Or it doesn't work for me, but it's a user thing, user error. So thanks again for joining us, and
Yeah. Thank you. Been a pleasure. Always a pleasure learning so much from people who are so dedicated to what they do and so passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast, and hopefully you've woken up a little bit with your coffee. I know that I'm still working.
I'm out.
Time to get more.
I got the last sip. I'm on my last sip.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody who tuned in. If you need help getting in touch with CJ, let us know. We'll be more than happy to connect you as well. And in the meanwhile, stick around, CJ, and we'll chat a little bit further outside of the recording. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on board and watching our video. If you've enjoyed the journey, follow the podcast and don't miss out what's coming ahead. If this has helped you navigate the marketing and sales waters, be sure to drop us a review as it helps us find more like-minded people. And until next time, here's to smooth sailing.